At my son's high school graduation, my parents dropped a bombshell. They were redirecting his college fund to my nephew instead. My husband chuckled and replied, "That's interesting, because we moved it last month." The moment they realized what had happened, they exploded in fury. I'll never forget the moment everything fell apart. We were celebrating my son Ethan's high school graduation at a fancy steakhouse. We'd saved up, wanting my parents there for this big milestone. Ethan had worked incredibly hard, AP classes, extracurriculars, a part-time job, and he'd been accepted into his dream college. This dinner was supposed to be a triumph, but my parents had other plans. The waiter had just set down our drinks when my mom, with a self-satisfied grin, tapped her glass and stood up. "Well, we have an announcement," she said, clearing her throat. "We've decided that Ethan's college fund will be going to his cousin, Jason, instead. He needs it more." Silence. I froze. My husband, Mark, gripped his fork tighter. Ethan's face went white. My younger daughter, sitting next to him, looked between us, confused. My dad nodded along, as if this was perfectly normal. "It's what's best for the family," he added. "Jason's had a rough time, and this will really help him get his life on track." Jason. My nephew. My brother's son. The kid my parents always favored, always bailed out of trouble. I felt a flush of heat rise in my face. Years of biting my tongue, of letting my parents dismiss my kids, of being treated like an afterthought compared to my brother, it all began to boil over. But Mark was quicker. He leaned back in his chair, took a sip of his beer, and let out a low, amused chuckle. "That's funny," he said, "because we moved it last month." My mother blinked. My dad's smile faltered. "What?" my mom asked, her voice now sharp. Mark grinned. "Yeah, we saw this coming, so we moved Ethan's college fund out of your reach weeks ago." Then, everything exploded. My mother's face turned so red I thought she might pass out. "You had no right," she shrieked. My father slammed his hand on the table, rattling the silverware. "You can't do that. That money was meant for family." I finally found my voice. "Ethan is family. And that fund was his. You had no say in it. You are being selfish," my mom spat. "Jason needs this. You know how hard things have been for your brother. We are fixing things for him, and you are ruining it." That's when it truly sank in. They'd never really intended that money for Ethan. They'd just been waiting for the right moment to snatch it away. I glanced at Ethan, who was staring at them with pure devastation. He'd grown up knowing his grandparents favored Jason, but this was different. This was proof that, in their eyes, he didn't even matter. And that broke something inside me. "Fixing things?" I repeated, my voice shaking. "You mean, like the way you fixed things last time Jason stole from us? Or when he got arrested and you paid off the charges? Or when he wrecked my brother's car and you bought him a new one?" My dad growled, "That is not the same thing. Jason has been struggling. Your brother is a single father doing his best. And I'm a mother doing my best." I shot back. "And you just told my son, on one of the most important days of his life, that his future doesn't matter. That you were stealing his chance at the life he worked so hard for." My mom scoffed. "Oh, please. Ethan can take out loans like everyone else." That was it. That was the moment I knew there was no coming back from this. Ethan stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. "You know what?" he said, his voice trembling but strong. "I don't need anything from you. I don't need your money, and I definitely don't need you in my life." Mark stood too, putting a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Let's go," he said, his voice steady and calm. "We don't owe them another second of our time." I stood up as well. "This was your last chance," I told my parents. "You've shown again and again who you are, but today, you made sure we'll never forget it." With that, we walked out. They screamed after us, called us ungrateful, said we were tearing the family apart. But as I looked at my son, his head held high despite the pain in his eyes, I knew we'd done the right thing. What I didn't know is how far my parents would go to try and get that money back. We left that restaurant knowing things would never be the same, but I had no idea the lengths my parents would go to get back at us. At first, it was just phone calls, endless, furious voicemails from my mom screaming about betrayal. My dad left a few too, gruff and angry, saying things like, "You'll regret this." My brother, who'd avoided the argument that night, finally sent a text 2 days later, "I don't know what's going on, but Jason needs that money more than Ethan does. You're being selfish." No questions, no attempt to understand. Just, "You're being selfish." I didn't reply. Then the real trouble began. A week after the dinner, Mark got a call from our bank. I was in the kitchen when I heard him say, "Excuse me, what withdrawal?" I froze, my stomach dropping. The call lasted another minute or two, and when Mark hung up, his face was tight with anger. "They tried to access Ethan's fund," he said. I grabbed the counter. "Who? Your parents?" "They called the bank, pretending to be us," Mark explained, "said we'd given permission for a family emergency withdrawal." I couldn't even breathe. The nerve, the absolute audacity. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my phone, found my dad's number, and called. The moment he picked up, I let loose. "You actually tried to steal from us?" I said, my voice shaking. "What is wrong with you?" My dad didn't even sound guilty. "You left us no choice," he said. "We wouldn't have had to do that if you weren't being so unreasonable." I nearly threw my phone across the room. "Unreasonable? You tried to commit fraud. It's our money. We contributed to it," my dad snapped. That stopped me cold. "What?" My mom's voice cut in. "You think you did all of this on your own? You think we never put anything in that fund?" My hands clenched into fists. "You never gave a single cent to Ethan's fund. You're remembering wrong." "And if we were to bring this to court," my dad said smoothly, "I guarantee they'd agree that we have a right to it." My blood ran cold. Mark must have seen my face because he stepped closer. "They wouldn't," he said. "They don't have a leg to stand on." But I wasn't so sure. My parents were bold, manipulative liars. If they were willing to go this far, what else were they planning? 3 days later, we got our answer. I was pulling into our driveway when I saw a thick envelope on our doorstep. I picked it up, and the second I saw the return address, I felt sick. It was from a lawyer. I ran inside, my hands shaking as I tore it open. Mark was in the living room. "What's that?" I scanned the first page, then the second, and by the third, my hands were shaking too hard to hold the papers steady. "They're suing us," I whispered. Mark's head snapped up. "What?" "They're claiming they co-funded Ethan's college savings and that we illegally transferred the money without their consent," my voice grew shrill. "They're saying they own part of the fund." Mark stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. He grabbed the papers from me, eyes narrowing as he read through them. "This is complete BS," he muttered. But I wasn't so sure. My parents were good at one thing, lying, twisting reality until they made themselves the victims. And what scared me most was that in a legal battle, they might actually win. Over the next few days, we scrambled to gather every piece of documentation we had, bank statements, transfer records, every single deposit we had ever made into that account. Then, my parents dropped their bombshell. At the next lawyer meeting, they produced a receipt from over a decade ago, a single deposit of $2,000 into the fund from when Ethan was a baby. They sat there, smug as anything, as their lawyer argued that because they had contributed anything to the fund, they had a right to contest where the money went. $2,000? I repeated, nearly laughing. "You think that gives you control over the entire fund?" My mom smiled sweetly. It was a contribution, and without it, you wouldn't have had the foundation to save as much as you did. I saw red. Mark, thankfully, was calmer. So let me get this straight, he said. You think that just because you gave a one-time gift over a decade ago that you now get to decide who it goes to? My dad nodded. Exactly. I could have screamed. It took weeks, but the court eventually ruled that while my parents had no control over the fund, their $2,000 had to be returned to them, with interest. It was a small win, at least they couldn't touch the fund. But it still felt like a loss, because the message was clear: my parents were willing to go to any length to punish us for saying no. And they weren't done yet. Not even 2 weeks after the court ruling, Mark walked into the house, his face pale. They reported us, he said. I blinked. What? To the IRS. They're claiming we committed tax fraud. I stopped breathing. They told the IRS that we had been hiding money and misreporting funds for years? I clutched the edge of the counter. This is insane. Mark nodded grimly. Yeah, and now we're under investigation. At that moment, I knew this wasn't just about the money. This was war. My parents were out to destroy us, and if they wanted to fight, they were about to get one. I thought the lawsuit was the worst of it. I thought losing a chunk of money to my greedy, self-righteous parents was as bad as it could get. I was wrong. Because when the IRS showed up at our doorstep, that's when I realized my parents weren't just trying to take money, they were trying to ruin us. The IRS investigation started with a letter, a cold, formal notice stating that our finances were under review due to a report of suspected tax discrepancies. Mark was the first to read it. He exhaled sharply and handed it to me without a word. I scanned it, my hands trembling. This can't be real, I whispered. Oh, it's real, Mark muttered. Then came the phone call, a polite but firm IRS agent explaining that an anonymous tip had flagged us for hidden assets and fraudulent fund transfers. We knew who was behind it, but proving it? That was another story. For the next few weeks, we were drowning in paperwork, pulling up years of tax records, bank statements, and anything else that might clear our name. We were lucky our finances were clean, but that didn't mean the investigation would be easy. The worst part? It affected Ethan's financial aid. His college flagged his account due to the IRS review, putting a temporary hold on his scholarship disbursements. My parents didn't just try to take his college fund, they tried to take his future. That was my breaking point. If they wanted war, I was about to bring them hell. I started digging. I knew my parents had secrets. I grew up watching them bend the truth, twist stories, and manipulate people to get their way. And if they wanted to play dirty, so could I. It didn't take long to find something interesting. See, my parents always acted like they were so responsible, like they were the financial backbone of the family. But what they didn't know was that years ago, Mark had helped them set up a small rental property investment. He had handled the paperwork, the tax filings, everything. And guess what? They had been underreporting their rental income for years. They thought they were invincible, but they had been sloppy. I made a call. I didn't report them directly, at least not yet. First, I let them know what I had found. I called my mother. She answered on the second ring, her tone smug. Oh, so you're finally ready to apologize? I almost laughed. No. I'm calling to let you know that I found the real tax fraud in this family. Silence. Then she scoffed. What are you talking about? Your rental income, I said. You know, the money you forgot to report for the last 15 years. Her breath hitched. You have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, I do, I said, my voice cold. And so does the IRS. Or at least they will, unless you drop this BS and call off the dogs. The shift in her tone was instant. You wouldn't. I smiled. Try me." She didn't say another word before hanging up. 2 days later, we got a call from the IRS. Our case was suddenly no longer a priority. A week after that, Ethan's college funds were unfrozen. They had backed off, for now. But I knew them. I knew they wouldn't let it end like this. And I was right. It happened late at night. Mark and I were asleep when the sound of glass shattering jolted us awake. For a second, I thought I was dreaming. Then I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps inside our house. Mark was already moving. He grabbed the baseball bat he kept next to the bed and motioned for me to call 911. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. Then we heard a voice. "Mom? Dad? Ethan?" Panic shot through me as I realized he was awake. He had heard the noise, and instead of staying put, he was coming downstairs. "Stay in your room," Mark shouted. Too late. We stepped into the hallway just as Ethan reached the stairs, and that's when we saw him, Jason, standing in our living room, drunk, his eyes wild and desperate, holding a crowbar. For a moment, no one moved. Then Jason took a shaky step forward. "Where is it?" he slurred. Mark tightened his grip on the bat. "Where's what?" "The money!" Jason shouted, his voice breaking. "I deserve it. They promised it to me." That's when I realized my parents had sent him. They knew they couldn't touch the money legally. They knew they had lost, so they sent their precious grandson to do their dirty work. Jason staggered toward us, raising the crowbar slightly. "You think you can just take what's mine?" Ethan took a step forward, his fists clenched. "It was never yours," he said, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "And you need to get out." Jason let out a broken, bitter sound. "Oh yeah? What are you going to do about it?" That's when Mark swung the bat. He didn't hit Jason, just the wall beside him, hard. The sound was enough to snap Jason out of his drunken haze. He stumbled back, eyes wide, then without another word, he turned and bolted out the front door. The police arrived 10 minutes later. Jason was arrested for attempted burglary. My parents? They bailed him out before the sun even came up. And then my mom had the audacity to call me. "You've gone too far," she hissed. "You had him arrested." I almost laughed. "He broke into our home with a weapon." "That's on you." She was quiet for a long moment, then she whispered, "You'll regret this." And for the first time, I truly believed she meant it. Because this wasn't over, not by a long shot. 2 weeks after the break-in, my brother reached out. He wanted to meet. "It's gone too far," he said over the phone, his voice exhausted. "Mom and Dad are a mess. Jason's a mess. We need to talk." I almost laughed. Now he wanted to talk? After sitting back and watching while our parents tried to steal from my son, after letting them manipulate and use him like a pawn? But Mark convinced me. "Maybe this is our chance to end it," he said. "To get some real answers." So, against my better judgment, we agreed. The family meeting was set for that Sunday at my parents' house. It felt like walking into a battlefield. Mark and I arrived first, with Ethan refusing to come. "I'm done with them," he had said simply, and I didn't blame him. My parents sat stiffly on the couch, their expressions cold. My mom's face was drawn, her lips tight. My dad wouldn't even look at us. Then my brother walked in with Jason. I tensed immediately. Jason looked awful, gaunt, with dark circles under his eyes, his usual cocky arrogance replaced with something more fragile. My mom gestured for us all to sit, but I stayed standing. "Let's get this over with." My brother sighed. "Look, we all screwed up." "We screwed up?" Mark scoffed. "I didn't mean it like that," my brother said quickly. I mean, this isn't what Mom and Dad wanted. I let out a bitter laugh. They wanted to steal from my son. They wanted to use Jason to break into our house. So please, tell me, what exactly did they not want? That's when Jason spoke, his voice hoarse. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, he muttered. I thought it was mine. His words made my stomach turn. You thought it was yours? Why? He swallowed hard and looked at my mom, and that's when I saw it, the guilt. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. Mark saw it too. He sat forward, his voice dangerously calm. Tell us, Jason. Why did you think it was yours? Jason hesitated, glancing nervously at my mother. That's when it hit me. Oh my God, I whispered. You told him, didn't you? My mother flinched. I turned to Jason, my heart pounding. They told you it was already yours, didn't they? That Ethan's fund wasn't just being given to you, but that it was yours all along? Jason's eyes darted back and forth, his face pale. My mom spoke before he could. We had to, she snapped. He was struggling. Your brother was struggling. We had to give him hope. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So you lied to him? You told him that his entire future was secured by money that was never his? My dad finally spoke, his voice sharp. What does it matter? You had plenty. You and Mark had good jobs, a house, a stable life. Jason had nothing. What kind of sister are you to sit by while your own nephew suffered? That did it. Something inside me snapped. I took a step forward, my hands shaking with rage. What kind of parents are you? I hissed. You have 2 children, but you've spent your entire lives treating me like a second-class citizen while I pointed at my brother, who shrank under my glare, got everything handed to him. And now you expect me to just give away my son's future because of your guilt? My mother stood abruptly. We did what we had to do. No! I spat. You did what you always do. You chose my brother over me, and this time, you got caught. Silence filled the room. Jason was shaking his head, his face crumbling. You lied to me, he whispered, looking at my mom like he was seeing her for the first time. Jason, she started, reaching for him, but he backed away. No, he whispered. You promised me. His breathing became erratic. You swore I wouldn't have to worry about college, that I was set. He looked at my dad. And you knew. My dad's silence was answer enough. Jason let out a shaky laugh, then he turned to me, his voice broken. I'm sorry. And for the first time in my life, I saw it, the realization, the regret, the understanding that he had been used just as much as we had been hurt. He turned and walked out. I didn't stop him. My parents tried to justify it. They ranted, they raved. They said I was overreacting, that I was tearing the family apart. I simply said, we're done. And this time, I meant it. My brother tried once to reach out after that day. He apologized, admitted he had let things go too far, that he had believed our parents too much. But I wasn't ready to forgive. Jason surprisingly stayed out of trouble after that. He got a job, took classes at a community college. Whether it was guilt, shame, or a true wake-up call, I'll never know. But I hoped, for his sake, he had finally learned. As for Ethan, he went to college, his college, the one he had earned. My parents never saw a dime of that money, and they never saw us again either. I won't lie and say it didn't hurt. Cutting off your own parents, even ones who never truly loved you the way they should have, is like grieving the dead. But you know what? Sometimes it's better to bury the past than let it keep hurting you. And I chose to live.